don't close your screens. Okay, so welcome to our final BSPS Meet the Students panel. I've got 4 amazing real live BSPS students, 2 in the same room, which barely ever gets to happen, but that's how we roll. So panelists, I put in the chat the introduction question, just so you're not having to scramble to remember what it is. Just gonna have you guys introduce yourself, name, where you're from, year in the BSPS, and what you're planning to do after you finish. Maybe you can say too, if you're doing the combined program or the traditional as well, if you're doing pharmacy. So why don't we just go in the order of, we'll do Elizabeth and Autumn first, then we'll do Nick, and then we'll do Joey, and we'll just kind of roll like that for all the questions. Sweet.
All right, my name is Elizabeth. I'm from Springfield, Ohio. I'm a second year in the BSPS program, and I'm also doing the combined program. And after BSPS, I plan on going to pharmacy school here at OSU.
Sweet.
I think that our answers are going to be very similar for a lot of these, so sorry in advance. But I'm Autumn Nickel. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I am also in the combined degree program route, a second year, and I also plan on going to pharmacy school post-graduation.
You guys have some things that aren't the same. They're roommates. They're both pharmacy techs. We'll get the whole story. It'll be good. Okay, Nick, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicholas Hamilton. I'm from Liberty Township, Ohio, right outside of Cincinnati. I'm a 4th year. I was in the EAP program, but I'll actually be going to medical school at UCLA next year.
Yay. Joey.
Hey everybody, my name is Joey. I'm from Sewell, New Jersey, pretty close to Philadelphia, so southern area of New Jersey. I'm in my 3rd year at BSPS, and I'm doing the traditional route, so I'm going to finish my bachelor's degree next year, then go into pharmacy after that. So I'll be applying to pharmacy schools this summer.
And hopefully OSU. That's the goal, right? I love it. So that's a little bit about our student panel. So we have a nice diverse group of students from different areas doing different things. So I've got a few questions planned that I'm going to ask them today. Questions that I think should interest you guys as prospective students. But then at the end, there'll definitely be some time if you have specific questions for any of them or all of them, you can feel free to ask. So, and I know you guys all know me, but for anybody watching at home, I'm Katie Watkins, Program Director of Undergrad Studies in the College of Pharmacy. So let us get started. So let's talk about a specific benefit you've gained from being a student in the College of Pharmacy.
I think one of the many benefits is just the community of the College of Pharmacy. We've gotten to know our advisors pretty well. And I know that doesn't always happen because some of the majors are a lot bigger than others. That's a really great opportunity. And through some of the EAP events, I've gotten to know faculty already, and that's not something that every 1st year and 2nd year gets to do. It's exciting.
Yeah, I feel like my specific benefit has a lot to do with the EAP program as well. I feel like Pharmacy House was the biggest benefit that I've had so far. It was the biggest blessing one of the biggest blessings I've ever had in my life, honestly. I met all of my best friends through it. I obviously met Elizabeth through Pharmacy House, and not a day goes by that I don't continue to speak to everyone that I met through there.
That's awesome. Yeah, and they really are real live roommates that met in Pharmacy House. I love it. Thanks, guys. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, so I'd say one thing kind of similar to what Autumn said, one specific benefit is kind of having a big university while having a small college, which I didn't really understand what that meant because I went to a big high school of almost 800 people in my graduating class. And so when people talk oh, small college, I was I still made it, I'm here and I came from a big school. So what's it matter what a small college is? But really kind of what they kind of talked about with you're able to meet everyone. So for example, Katie knew some of my interests that weren't on my schedule, stuff like that. When I had questions about, getting researcher, how do I study for the MCAT, which is the test you take before medical school? She connected me with a BSPS student who studied for it before. I met up with them, and she would sometimes send me stuff hey, I know you're interested in public health. Here's this new class, or here's this opportunity. That's something that doesn't happen if you're in any other major for the most part, especially if you're in arts and sciences. But Yeah, so like just the
Turn.
fact that people know who you are outside of just your name. That was really something I'm not used to, but still you can go to like the football games and like be able to like be a part of something where there's tens of thousands of people like who are just students, and then there's hundreds of thousands around the city. Like the game days here, if it's a home game, it's like a holiday. And like even if you're not into football, people just like love that like atmosphere. So I would say those are like kind of two specific benefits.
Love it. Thank you, Nick. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with everything that was already said. I think that the community within the College of Pharmacy is really great because, like Nick was saying, you get to have all the perks of going to a really large school, all the big organizations and clubs that you can join. But then you also have that aspect of being in the College of Pharmacy where it's a lot easier to connect with faculty and other students. I would say that one thing that's kind of unique and specific to me is that I've kind of used OSU's name and the College of Pharmacy's program like for leverage with getting like research positions and jobs outside of Ohio. Because I've been spending my summers and then Christmas breaks back at home in New Jersey. So I actually was able to land a research position in after my freshman year, which is kind of difficult because you don't really have much of the specific like education related to pharmacy. Um, but I spent some time doing that during my first summer after freshman year. And then I also just got a position working at CVS giving the COVID vaccine this upcoming summer. So I've just kind of been able to tell wherever I'm applying, like, listen, I have more of a background than the average student just because I'm in this program and I know a little bit more about how pharmacy works if you compare it to someone who might not be actually in a pharmacy related major. There's not really that many colleges in the country that have it. So I think just being in this major and being at OSU's College of Pharmacy is definitely beneficial for many different reasons.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. And Basani, I know you just jumped on. We have been going for a little while. Welcome. Sweet. Thank you guys all for sharing that info. So my next question, and 100% agree with you all. I could talk about this stuff all day. You know that I can. So my second question is, and I know it's hard to choose, but and really we have plenty of time, so you can talk about more than one if you want, but I'm interested in you talking about something unique to your experience at Ohio State. So it doesn't necessarily have to be pharmacy based. It can be if you haven't talked about it already, but something that's been, unique and impactful of an experience that you've gotten to have since you've been a student here.
I think one that's not pharmacy related is all of the traditions at OSU, kind of like Nick was talking about. They're definitely like holidays here. And even outside of football, there's a ton of stuff to do on a normal year, of course. But it's a ton of fun just getting to see students, alumni, and then just people from Columbus coming together. I'm personally a big fan of OSU football, but also kind of pharmacy related. Just today, I was helping out at the vaccine clinic, and one of the girls behind me recognized my CVS scrubs, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, are you in BSPS?" And I met another BSPS student there, and it was so fun just getting to talk to her. So I think that's kind of a unique experience.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of our students are helping at the vaccine clinic because they've been needing extra help. So I'm not surprised you ran into another BSPS student. That's awesome.
It's just
Go ahead,
cool.
Autumn. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Elizabeth. Yeah.
Sorry. And I just want to talk about how supportive everyone is. The students are of each other, and I love that. So.
I'm also going to continue to plug the College of Pharmacy with mine without breaking any HIPAA laws. As like a technician at Kroger, I was able to meet a professor from a class that I never thought I would get to talk to. Again, I'm not going to break any laws because I like being a student. I don't really feel like relocating, but I feel like I was able to I got to personally meet a professor who would never have known I existed otherwise. And now whenever that professor comes in, we still are able to communicate and we bond over pharmacy. This professor is almost giddy over the fact that I'm a pharmacy student and at Ohio State and taking that specific course. And I wouldn't have that opportunity if it weren't for Ohio State. I wouldn't have that opportunity if it weren't for the College of Pharmacy. I think it's absolutely insane, honestly.
That's so cool, Autumn. I love that. Go ahead, Nick.
I'd say like my biggest benefit, like it's kind of college pharmacy, kind of like other things. My ability to travel in my undergraduate career. I think a lot of people think if you're a STEM major, you don't get to travel. You look at the business kids and you're like, oh man, I wish I could go to Europe. But yeah, so through the College of Pharmacy, I was able to go to Switzerland. Every year, the College of Pharmacy does a study abroad over spring break. So yeah, I was able to look at uh, pharmacy and its role in like just the overall healthcare system in Switzerland. So I was there for a week. Before that, I did a mobile medical brigade in Ecuador. And as part of like research, I was able to like get published and present at a research conference. And if you do research in the hospital, and a lot of research, if you get a presentation role, they'll pay for you to go to that conference. So my flights, my hotel was paid for. I got per diem for food and all that. So through like just like, and the last year and a half has been like COVID, so we haven't been able to do anything. So in my 2.5, 3 years, I was able to go abroad twice, and then I was able to go to Orlando for that research presentation. So I was able to go to like Disney and all that too, or Universal. So yeah, traveling is awesome.
Yeah, and I think like the pharmacy trip and other trips too that are happening through the university, they do a really good job of like giving you the opportunity to do the fun cultural things that you would do in another country or another city, and the educational piece. So you're not just like, in the educational piece the whole time. So I love that. I love that you got to go to Disney while you were in Orlando, of course, right? Okay, Joey, what about you?
Yeah, I think overall, like this question is pretty interesting just because almost every student that goes to OSU has a completely unique like experience. There's just so much to offer with the different organizations, like I said. And the one main one that I got involved in as soon as I got on campus in my first semester was student government. I was a big student government person in high school, and I knew that I wanted to definitely work on projects and policies related to university when I got here. Um, my role was kind of unique though, because I was put in a position that I didn't really know anything about. The position that I got appointed to was related to campus mobility and like our CODA bus and our transportation and cabs and everything. And my first semester here, like I didn't know anything about OSU. I didn't even know how to use the bus. So I learned a lot about that. And eventually, like through meeting with different administrators, they would say like, oh yeah, like here's another committee that talks about mobility off campus. Like you should join that. You should join this. And eventually I was able to join like a bunch of different committees that I probably wouldn't have been able to be a part of. I've taken some trips downtown in Columbus in the business district and met with CEOs and CFOs of some big companies, which is really cool. But the nice thing about it is that like through the different organizations that I've joined, I was able to kind of become a more well-rounded student and not just pharmacy or not just sports or whatever. I was able to learn a lot more about the city of Columbus and work on professional skills and professional development just by meeting with other administrators, which I think is pretty cool. And obviously my path is different than what yours might be, but I think it's really nice that anyone can kind of make whatever path or journey that they want with the different organizations that OSU has available to us.
Yeah, and one of the questions I get a lot from students is how to become competitive for like med schools or pharmacy school or whatever their next step is, and how do you get leadership experience and things like that. And being at a school like Ohio State, like Joey was just talking about, like the opportunities are endless and the different ways to get involved in organizations and just serving on the e-board or serving in a role on a committee or something like that. It gives you the opportunity to learn how to better communicate, how to work with people that are different than you, how to, be a leader and step up and all those kinds of things. So I love it. Those are all such great examples. You guys are just the best panelists. I love having you all. Thank you so much. And we've had a couple other students join us, so thank you so much. Sorry you missed the first question, Alex, but and I think Vicini missed the first one too, but you're getting the rest of it. It's all good. So I wanted to ask you all a little bit about your experience with the pharmaceutical science courses. So I know you've all at least been through 2 years, if not more, of your program at this point. So I know you've taken some pharmacy classes. So why don't you share a little bit about some of the classes that you've taken that are specific to pharmacy that you've enjoyed and why?
I have two favorites. One is Pharmacy 2400, Addicting Drugs, and then kind of with the same theme is Pharmacy 5590, It's definitely been the most powerful class I've taken so far. It's chemical dependency in the health professional. We're actually taking it together this semester. And it's taught by an actual pharmacist who did become addicted, and it was just really powerful. It's one of many really interesting courses, I think, that we have here at OSU. The options are endless. I haven't been able to take a ton yet because you don't need to with the combined program, but I'm doing a couple extras just because they're that interesting. So I highly recommend them.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. She definitely stole mine. 5590 is right. I knew she was gonna do it too. I almost wanted to go first. 5590 has been my favorite so far, and it's the chemical dependency and the health professional. It opened my eyes to like the whole world of chemical dependency. I feel like I didn't take it seriously before then, or really even know a whole lot about it, or how susceptible different health professionals are to it. It's so interesting too. Chris Hart, he keeps it extremely very real, very authentic, and it's surprisingly very relatable to what you're studying. Another one that is part of our required courses, it's an introductory, it's is it drug discovery and development? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
2,500.
Yes, thank you. I felt like I got a lot of information out of that I was able to continue to carry on and use like now, like especially like understanding insurance and things like that. When I go into work now, I have a better understanding of what it is I'm actually doing as opposed to just doing something.
That you were trained how to do, right? And it's awesome that the two of you mentioned all those specific classes that Elizabeth and Autumn mentioned are all classes you can take as a freshman. So, and it's something I love about this program is that like the minute you step foot on campus, you can take pharmacy courses. You don't have to have like this extensive background in chemistry or whatever you might think to do that. And particularly the substance misuse class that both of the girls talked about, that class, like I hear over and over again, students are just so inspired by it. Many students end up going into a substance misuse and addiction studies minor because that's a course that's a part of it. It's a very popular minor for our students because you learn so much in that one and addicting drugs, how those concepts really connect back to the things that you learn and working within the field of pharmacy. And also Chris Hart is just an angel of a human. That man, that professor, you guys don't even, I got to tell you, because this is just a side note for the girls, because they have him as a professor. He is the sweetest. He sends my son cards in the mail with like little like stickers and like he's so sweet. Like he's like one of the faculty members that just like stops by my office and like we talk, and you know, he's gotten to know a little bit about me. And yeah, he sends my son mail because he knows that my son loves getting mail. It's so cute. I know. He's the sweetest. I know. Oh, love him. Go ahead, Nick. What about you? I already know what you're going to say, but go ahead and say it.
Like, so my course is something that no one else on the panel is taking because it's like the only class you have to take your fourth year. And it's called Molecules to Medicine 2. First off, the professor's great. His name's Dr. Woods. Like, if you ever seen like ASAP Science or Minute Physics, sometimes his videos remind me of those. Like, you could tell he, like, in another life he was a YouTuber. Yeah, he's an amazing guy. And essentially how Molecules to Medicine 2 works is like it builds off, this is so your fourth year after you've already taken biochemistry and all that. And essentially, if you're thinking you want to do like clinical pharmacy or like anything revolving like the clinical aspect of healthcare, you will love this class. Because essentially, instead of like chapters, like every like unit or every couple weeks is a health condition. And you go through like these 7 or 8 different topics to kind of like, all right, what this body system it affects. How does this body system typically work? What goes wrong in this disease? How do we diagnose it? What are the treatment options? Why do these treatment options work? How do they impact the like pathophysiology? Like, and essentially like your exams, you feel like you're able to like treat a patient essentially. Like you actually have case studies where like a patient comes in, they complain of these things, you run these, first they ask you what test should you run? And then it's like, all right, you have these results. What do you interpret? Is it mild, moderate, severe? What treatment option would you recommend? Does that change if you find out they've had a history of stroke? Like, so by the end, you feel like you're able to like hang with a doctor. obviously it's about 5 conditions and like you do a day in med school, but like it's still, you feel like you're a little healthcare professional and a great class.
Yeah, that's a popular one. I love it. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, I just saw your message in the chat. I'm definitely looking forward to that class next semester.
Oh, you're gonna love it. I can't wait to hear you talk about it because I think it's gonna be right up your alley. Yeah.
Yeah, so the hard thing about going last with these panels is I have to come up with the unique answer that wasn't already said. But I definitely have to agree with everything that was already said. I think Addicting Drugs is a great class. The class that you take before Nick, the one that Nick said, is also really fun. I'm in that one right now. But I would say that for me, like there's a lot of electives that are required where it's like a survey class that teaches you what pharmacists do or things like that. And the reason why I enjoyed them was because when I first started as a BSPS student, I was actually planning on going to medical school. I didn't really know anything about pharmacy. I don't really have anyone in my family that's in the healthcare field. So by taking those classes, it kind of exposed me to more options, and I ended up switching into pharmacy just because I feel like I would enjoy it more. But it's definitely nice being able to take those classes and learn about pharmacists, learn about different fields in healthcare, and they're actually taught by pharmacists, so you get to interact with them. So that was definitely beneficial for me because it actually steered me in a different path that I probably wouldn't have been steered in if I didn't take those classes.
Yeah, I was really excited the day that Joey told me he was switching to pharmacy. I was like, what? That's amazing. So we're working on getting him ready to apply next year. Well, this year, actually, this summer. It's crazy. It's coming up. And just a little plug, next Thursday at the same time, we're going to be doing our last panel with our faculty. So you can, if you're interested in learning a little bit more, Dr. Woods, who Nick talked about, will be on that panel, along with a few other of our amazing faculty. So if you want to join us and learn a little bit more about them, please do. So the last question I had for the panel, and then of course we have time for our students that have joined us to ask questions as well, is to really think back to your senior year of high school. So when you were in the seats of these prospective students, and what would you tell yourself? Like if you could have experienced all the things you've experienced now, what would you go back and tell yourself then? And let's go in reverse order because Joey's right. He doesn't ever get the chance to go first. So we'll let Joey go first, and then Nick, and then Autumn and Elizabeth. You got to pick up the pieces at the end, my friends. Say something different. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to say for this question. It is one of my favorite questions. And every time that I meet with a professor or a doctor or a pharmacist, whatever that might be, I definitely try to ask this question just to get as much information as possible. There's a lot of things that I would say to this, but I think the number one thing, if I was in a senior's position and getting ready to apply to college, is it's definitely going to be stressful. Like college is hard. High school is hard when you first start to. Eventually you'll get used to it. So just take your time. And I know Nick had a similar answer before, so we'll definitely probably go into more detail. But the one thing that I would say is don't be afraid to say no to the different opportunities that you might have. Because when I was in high school, I was the kind of kid who played different sports, was in a bunch of different clubs. I was just doing like as much as possible. I didn't have much time for myself. But once I got into college, I was like, listen, I'm not going to have time to be in 10 different clubs or 10 different honor societies, whatever that is. I'm going to pick the ones that I'm most passionate about and see where it takes me. So maybe the first semester you get involved in one thing and see what kind of leadership positions you can get into. The reality is though that you're not going to be able to do everything you want. So it's important to really prioritize the things that are important to you. And like I said, don't be afraid to say no. Definitely put your academics first. And if you don't think you're going to have time to get a job your first semester or join a club your first semester, that's okay. You'll be able to add on to it and get used to everything. The first semester is definitely the most difficult because you're learning everything at once. All the different buildings, where your classes are, how to study, where to eat. It's a lot at once, but after a few weeks and after you make some friends, you'll definitely be fine. But enjoy the moment, enjoy the summer, and definitely reach out to any of us if you have any questions. We're always happy to help.
That's such good advice. I always think about that. Like when I feel like when freshmen come into orientation, so many are so eager to just like hit the ground running. They want to take like, we plan out we kind of give like you suggestions of classes to schedule, and we'll usually keep it around 14 to 15 hours. And then a lot of freshmen are like, I want to take 18 hours. I want to do all of it. And I'm like, like you have to learn how to do laundry and like feed yourself and like get from point A to point B, and you're going to want to get involved in stuff. Like trust us when we say like ease in, baby. Like it's not a race, you know. There's a lot to adjust to. So it's really good advice, Joey. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I just said like, yeah, I was definitely the one of the kids that Katie was describing. She was like, maybe we should do like 14 credits, and I was like, you mean 18? Like, so that was me. But yeah, kind of like the two tips I would like give to myself if I was like a senior. The first one is like you shouldn't ever say like, oh, I'm not gonna apply to this because I don't feel like I'm good enough. Like, I think that's commonly a thing where like in like high school, you were probably the top of your class. Then you realize a lot of people at Ohio State were near the top of their class. And like, so you'll see someone who like, maybe you have an A-, someone has like a higher A, and you're like, oh, they're going to get this position. Like, so I'm not even going to bother. Like, you shouldn't ever tell yourself that, because like, you never know. Like, there's been times where it's like, oh, I didn't think I was going to get something, but I applied anyway. You end up getting it. And then like you apply to the next thing, and like it keeps snowballing. And if it's something you want to do, then like go for it. You know, like the only person that should ever tell you no is the person whose job it is to tell you no. Like kind of like you said, like you feel free to like say no to like other people and other things, like to focus on what you want to focus on. But if there's something you want to do, don't not do it because you're insecure, because you have low self-esteem, because like you probably are capable. And then the other thing is, yeah, like kind of how Joey said, sometimes it does get stressful, but that's when it's even more important to be well-rounded. Like, don't get me wrong, you're here to get a good education, you're here for school, you're here for all that. That being said, like on your tombstone, you don't want it to just say student, you know, we want to say friend, you wanted like to say like all these things, like, and so it's okay to have fun, it's okay to explore Columbus, it's okay to like find a new place to eat, it's okay to like go out if you're above 21, like it's okay to like do these things. You should be having fun. Like, you shouldn't just be living at the library. That being said, you should go to the library, but you don't want to live there. You want to be well-rounded. So in short, like, don't be afraid to apply for things, and be well-rounded.
I feel like my what was I gonna say? Let me restart.
Listen, I feel you. Like by 4 o'clock most days, I'm like, words, I don't know where you went.
Yeah, my recommendation is very similar to Nick's. Kind of, I feel like my biggest thing I would say to like senior year me would be like to have more confidence in myself. I feel like when I was in the shoes of all the prospective students, I was more worried about I was worried about kind of silly things now that I look back at it, like making friends, finding my classes, doing this, doing that, getting involved. And I feel can you guys still hear me?
We lost you for a second, Autumn. I think you said I feel, and then we lost you. Can you repeat what you were going to say?
Yeah, I feel like I put like a lot of extra pressure on myself that didn't need to be there. And had I had more confidence and like faith that everything was going to work out the way it would, then I would have saved myself a lot of stress that didn't need to occur.
And kind of like what almost everyone has said, you don't have to have it all figured out right away. Like, you have time. I know it seems like things move fast when you first get to college, but like, it's going to be okay. You're going to make friends. You're going to find your classes. Just show yourself a little grace. Be patient with things. And again, that balance is so important. Like Nick was saying, you need to do stuff outside of class as well, but still make academics a priority, of course. I think that's all I've got.
I love it. That's great. Yeah, and I'm not a student, but I'm going to say too, I'm just going to plug student support services. You know, you're never alone. You know, not only is everybody in the same shoes as you, all the first year students that are coming in are in the same shoes as you, but you've got such a great support network. The fact that you're coming into the College of Pharmacy at OSU, like Nick was talking about earlier, especially for some of you who joined a little bit late, you know, you've got, and Joey was talking about this, I think everybody kind of alluded to it in one aspect or another, that you're in a small community, you know, so between your advisor and your professors and all of our staff, we've got you covered in every way possible. There's nothing that you can't come to us with. Even if we can't directly help you with it, we're going to know how to get you connected, and then it's going to be on our radar so we can keep you in our sights and make sure that you're doing okay. And that's what we're all here for and what we all care about. Like, I don't get any crazy added, I don't get to like go on the field at Ohio Stadium or something because I work at Ohio State. Like, I'm here because I because I care about helping students. Like, that's literally what I'm called to do, and I love it. So, and that's how my colleagues are as well. So we're here to help you, and we really want to see you reach your goals. It makes me so happy. Like, even to see, it's crazy to me, like Nick's about to graduate, Joey's going to be a senior, like Elizabeth and Autumn, I remember them coming to EAP interviews when they were in high school, and now they're going to be juniors. Like, it's just crazy, and so exciting to always see the students flourishing through the program, and that's what happens. So it's amazing. So this is kind of the part in the panel where, and I'm so glad we have a good group today that's joined us, that I'd love to welcome you to either unmute and ask a question. You don't have to turn your camera on if you don't want to, or you can drop a question in the comments. Definitely encourage you to ask. You've got 4 amazing students here that are really excited to talk about anything you want to know. Those were just the questions that I made up because I thought they would be good. So definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. And while you're thinking about it, I'm going to drop in the chat. That's the Instagram handle for Ohio State. I have to plug it for 2 reasons. One, because Elizabeth and Autumn were recently featured in the posts. So if you scroll down, you'll see them. We did a little feature on them about their roommate, love connection, and what they do as pharmacy students, and it's awesome. And then on today's stories, you'll see a familiar face, Mr. Nick Hamilton, with another one of our freshmen, Ashley Swisshelm, who's awesome. And they did a little virtual tour of Ohio State through their eyes, the things that they love. So I definitely would encourage you to check that out. So we had a question in the chat. How did schoolwork differ from high school to college for you? And what tips do you have to prepare? Great question, Elena. I love it. Yeah, so thinking about your college transition from the study skills and academics perspective. And really, whoever wants to go first can go first. I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't have an answer. So just feel free to unmute when you have one.
I could go. So I did kind of high school. I did a college credit plus program. So if you have questions about going from that to undergrad, that's also too. But just generally between high school and college classes, I feel like high school, they both, some people say oh, college professors don't care. They care just as much, sometimes more. But the difference is, in high school, sometimes it's the teacher's responsibility to make sure you pass and get a good grade. But in college, it's your responsibility to make sure you pass and get a good grade. Because full disclosure, you're paying them regardless. That being said, they're here because they want to be a professor and they want to teach you. And I've had way better relationships with my professors than I ever had with my high school professors or my high school teachers, except maybe one. But yeah, I've had really good interactions with not only the College of Pharmacy professors, but even my Gen Chem professor, who, it was a class of 300 people, and he wrote me a personal rec letter for med school. He was one of my rec letters. So don't be daunted by the big classes. If you want to be close to that professor, you can. You just have to have a little more responsibility, go to office hours, stuff like that. But the other thing is, you aren't in class nearly as much. Even if it's a 5 credit hour class, you might only be in class for 2 to 3 hours a week. And then everything else is recitation or your own studying. So what I'd recommend is maybe a couple hours a day, just schedule when you go to the library. Don't just say you have a lot of free time, way more free time than you think you're going to have, but that free time goes by quickly. So maybe plan, something I did was, after this class, if there was 2 hours between class, for an hour and a half or an hour at least, I would go to the library. So that way I could get stuff done. And I wasn't waiting until midnight to be oh crap, I have all these things due. There were some of those nights, but the more you kind of plan ahead of when you're actually going to do your work, that helps. And also there's something called Syllabus week, which is essentially the first week of any semester. You typically don't have that much due. Some people keep a good planner to keep them responsible. I lose the planner before I ever get good use out of it. That's not my style. But during that first week, I write down when every assignment of that semester is due. And I just like go through it. So that's my planner. I can look and see, do I have anything due tomorrow? And if I do that. But if it's like, oh, I'm done with everything for the next 3 days, that's when I go out, try a new food place, do something fun. So that way I have everything in like the date it's due order, and that works for me. So those are my tips.
Love it. Any other tips, Joey, Elizabeth, Adam?
Yeah, I have a few things to add. So for me, I don't know if this is like the popular opinion, but I think that every semester that has gone by has gotten slightly easier. I think the first semester was probably the hardest, just because you're adjusting to so much, like I was saying, and the classes are a bit difficult depending on which ones you pick. But I'm in my third year now, and it's been pretty manageable. I was able to pick up a job. Me and Nick work together, and then get involved more in some of the activities that I'm a part of. But I would say like it's different than high school because you're not spending 7-8 hours a day in school. You're only spending maybe like 2, 3, 4 hours in class. That being said, that doesn't mean that you have less work. It definitely is more work. It's just more on your own, like Nick was saying. The other thing too is that you definitely have to be organized, because your professors aren't going to tell you every day like what homework assignments are due the next day or that night or whatever, or when the exams are. You probably have to study a bit more advanced for your exams, because they're usually on more content than like in high school, where you can just kind of study the night before and get by. But I mean, it's not horrible. Like I would say that most classes probably have a lot less homework, because in high school it's usually like an assignment due every day or every other day, where in college you might not have any homework at all for one class other than just to take exams and study for them. But yeah, the best advice is to just read through all your syllabi and just write down everything you have to do and keep everything organized, and then make sure that you're keeping up with it so that you don't get too far behind and you have the weekends to do whatever you want or just relax. My suggestion is like after each day, ideally, but after each week, which is more realistic, is to just make sure that you're caught up with all the content for the week in that class. And that way, once the exam comes, you are mostly prepared and just have to brush up on a few things.
I love it. Thanks, Joey. Go ahead, Elizabeth, and or Autumn, whichever one wants to talk first.
I think we both have stuff. But I would say the biggest thing for me was just like realizing that I needed to change the way I studied from high school. It took a while, honestly, like my first semester, to figure out what worked for me and what didn't. So I would just kind of plan ahead for that, and know that it's a thing, because everyone's a little bit different. And like what Joey and Nick were talking about, you might not have homework due every day, but there's still work to be done. And if you're proactive, it goes a lot better. I'm speaking from experience.
I'm not surprised that she just stole what I wanted to say again, but to piggyback off of it, to kind of give like a tip on how to improve your studying, something that I've done is the Dentist Learning Center. They have like study skills courses, and I will plug them like day and night for the rest of my life. I've taken like multiple courses through them. They have ones I'm taking right now. It's like how to be a better like e-learner, like how to do better like with studying and taking notes and stuff through online classes, and that's like new. And then they have ones for like how to study better in your like in-person classes, like how to do better academically all around as a student. And that helped me adjust, because I also had a really big issue coming in with the difference of how I needed to study versus for like high school versus college. But yeah.
And I appreciate both of your transparency with that, because I think sometimes people struggle with saying like, I struggled. So I appreciate you both saying that and being real. And Autumn, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that about the Dentist Learning Center. And if you're someone sitting at home right now and you're thinking to yourself like, man, I already know this is going to be hard for me. Like the transition is going to be a struggle. Just tell us at orientation, like I'm nervous about my study skills, and we can sign you up for a study skills class your first semester. The really nice thing about those classes too is like you learn these great skills that are very, usable and helpful, but they're also graded classes. So it's a nice little boost to your GPA. I'm sure Autumn really likes seeing that easy A on her GPA every semester, right? So it's really functional in a lot of different ways. It's helpful to do those classes. So don't hesitate to ask us if you want to do one your first semester. And Nick and Joey both dropped a couple other tips in the chat, so definitely check those out. There was a question about Pharmacy House, and Joey, I know you didn't live there your freshman year, but I know Nick, Autumn, and Elizabeth did. So if you guys don't mind, and I know Nick dropped a couple things in the chat about this already, but maybe if you guys can talk about your favorite part or most impactful part of Pharmacy House, I'm sure they would love to hear about that since one of them asked.
Summarize, yeah, send it in the chat, but in short, like the events, I'm not sure how much you guys know about the events, but essentially, like I think it's like every other week or once a month, we have different events come in, and it can be anything from like talking about how to get involved in research. One's like how to survive how to survive general chemistry. One talking about how to study disparities in healthcare. It changes a lot, but I know people who got research after the research one. I started getting closer to my professor, the chem professor who wrote my rec letter. He came and did the how to survive Gen Chem. So it's like, it goes full circle. People who got pharmacy tech jobs after, like we learned about that. So there's a lot of great opportunities there. And then like, I talked about the office hours and tutoring services, but I didn't really have to use them that like really at all freshman year, because if I had a question in Gen Chem, I'd go like across the hall to like this person. If I had a question in calculus, I'd go to the person next door. Then we had a group for studying addicting drugs, and there was the one business guy on the floor, and he always got really concerned when we were like, all right, we got to go do addicting drugs, we'll be back. Like he got really scared. But yeah, so I would say definitely the events, and then just really having a bunch of study buddies on the floor.
Love it. Elizabeth and Autumn, obviously we can see one great thing about Pharmacy House on the screen, right?
Yes, of course we love Pharmacy House. We're actually living with another roommate next year who's also from Pharmacy House, and I'm still really close with everyone that I lived with, and that support system was just unmatched. And we would, it sounds so cheesy, but last year we would have like hallway parties, and if you just go out in the hallway, there'd be a bunch of us just hanging out, and it was so much fun. It was nice to be able to go through the same classes with everyone, but also be able to hang out and do stuff outside of school as well. Yeah, I think most of it's already been said, but I love Pharmacy House.
Yeah, mine's the same, exactly the same, actually, just the connections. I don't want to say, like, I don't want to be like a downer on freshman me, but like, it sounds cheesy. I feel like I wouldn't have made it without them, which isn't true. I could have, but like they're a big reason why I was as successful as I was. They constantly held me accountable, and not even just like the people that lived on the floor. Our RA was absolutely amazing, and I feel like because he was also in the medical field and into pharmaceuticals, and he just had a passion for the things that we had a passion for. He also held us accountable in that field. And I feel like that doesn't happen. Actually, no, that doesn't happen on like in your normal residence halls.
I just heard actually yesterday or the day before that the RA was selected for one of the RAs was selected for the floor for next year. And she's a current freshman that's an EAP student that was in Pharmacy House this year. So I'm really, really excited that at least one of the RAs next year will be somebody who's going through the same thing that everyone else will be going through. I think they do a really good job of that, trying to find somebody who's at least connected to healthcare and pharmacy in some capacity. And it's even better when it can be a student in the program. So I love it. That's great. Yeah, and from the perspective of a staff member, you know, the really nice thing is that your academic advisor will also be the person who is planning and organizing all the events for Pharmacy House. So you're going to get to know your advisor even better than the other kids in this major that are already going to get to know their advisor really well because we're a small program. So you just get to build that relationship even more. And yes, Nick, free food, like every event has food, and it's not the dining hall food. We try to bring in things from outside of the dining halls. And yes, you did, Nick. I remember you took so much. That's what it's there for. It's going to go to waste if you don't eat it. We're not all about wasting food. So, and just as a plug for those of you who maybe aren't in the EAP program or who aren't applying for it, if you want to live in Pharmacy House, you can. You just have to fill out the LC application, which I believe is due, it's either today or tomorrow. So definitely get on that if you are interested in living in Pharmacy House. If you're EAP, you don't have to worry about it. You'll get automatically placed there. So we have about 10 minutes left. And I didn't see any other questions in the chat, but I just wanted to make sure that I give you all the opportunity to ask if anybody has any additional questions. Joey and Autumn and Elizabeth are all going to pharmacy school if you got in late, and Nick is going to med school. So just for some context there. Are there any other questions?
One thing that I wanted to add, if no one has questions, I put it in the chat already, but I'm just going to say it just in case like the video doesn't have access to the chat, like the recording. But this was actually advice that I believe I got on a college tour at Michigan. I only lasted about 5 minutes there because I didn't like the campus. But and it's funny how I ended up here too. But yeah, so I was meeting with one of their like pre-med advisors or something like that, and I was like really nervous about getting into med school because at the time I was pre-med, like I said. And the one advice that he had that kind of stuck with me, and I've gotten it from other people here too, is that the first year or the first couple of semesters, you should definitely like focus on academics first and don't like put too much on your plate, like I was saying, because the first couple of years you're kind of building your GPA and it's really important. And you want to like develop good studying habits. So what I would suggest is like definitely prioritize your grades the first couple of semesters, and then once you get comfortable, then you can kind of branch out and get involved in other organizations, go around and explore Columbus and that kind of stuff. But you don't want to put yourself in a bad position by being that person that parties every night and doesn't take their schoolwork seriously, because you could be applying to pharmacy school or med school, grad school later on, and then you might end up messing yourself up just by like not having a great GPA or having to retake classes, that kind of thing. So definitely start off taking like school as serious as possible, and then the more time that the more you get comfortable with it, you'll be able to add other things to your plate and kind of branch out.
I love it. Yes. Yeah, it's always easier to like do less, like like do less later than to try to do more and like catch up on things. It's always better to put a little bit more than you think you need to into something at the beginning. Oh, great. Thanks, Joey. Everybody shared their email addresses in the chat. So the chat won't be available after today. So definitely feel free. You can copy and paste those into an email or a Word document or anything like that to save. Would love to, or I know all of these students would love to answer any questions or help you out if you have questions next year even. They're all awesome. So that's why I asked them to do this, because they're so great. But all of our students are great, to be honest. Like, so are there any other last questions? I'm really working on my silence, my comfort level of silence. I'm still on the struggle bus. Cool. Well, hey, for those of you who didn't hear, definitely check out the at Ohio State Pharmacy Instagram. Nick's on there, today's story, and Autumn and Elizabeth are on there. We got to get you on there, Joey. I know that they featured Joey on the website back when he did his internship that summer. You guys have all been featured. You're also popular. So I know Cecilia just said she had to leave a little early, but so stay in touch, follow the Instagram. May 1st is coming up, so make sure you pay your acceptance fee if you haven't done that already. And like I've said in emails, and for those of you I've spoken to in person, I'm happy to speak to anybody one-on-one. Any questions that you have, don't hesitate to reach out. We do have one more of these coming up next week, and I'll send out another reminder. So I hope some of you can join us to see our faculty. I don't think there's anything else. I'll see a couple of you tomorrow at EAP interviews. Looking forward to that. And big thank you to Nick, Joey, Autumn, and Elizabeth for your time. Thank you all for sharing your perspective. Sweet.
Katie, I had one question actually.
Of course.
So, you know me, nothing new. I was just wondering for roommates, is there going to be like a Google form or something where we get to know each other? Like, how is the process
Yeah.
gonna work?
Great question. So the last EAP interview day is this coming Friday, tomorrow. So then everybody has to accept their seat by the 23rd, which will be next Friday. So on the 23rd, I will be sending out a document with everyone who has filled out their intention form and given me permission to do so. I'll share contact info for everyone. And then it just turns into a whole thing. Elizabeth and Autumn probably remember, like everybody just starts, I think people tend to start like a group me or group chats, and people just start connecting that way. And that always turns into roommate love connections, as I like to call them. And that's usually how people find roommates. But like, if for some reason, you don't get connected to somebody, like you'll still be placed with someone from Pharmacy House. So yeah, somebody usually just takes the lead and starts a group me. And I usually say that to an email, like somebody start a group me. And because I don't want to involve myself in it. Like I want you guys to be able to have your thing and not be like, oh, Katie's watching us, like, like Big Brother or something, right? So that'll happen next week. And then hopefully people will feel like they've had enough time to make those connections before, everything gets going. So I got you, Anu, don't worry.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Any other last questions? I don't want to cut anyone off. Sweet, sweet. Well, thank you all for your time. I know sitting on Zoom for an hour when we do it all the time now isn't the best thing always. So I appreciate you doing it. Thank you again to the students, and go Bucks.